Yeah. Go for
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the second day of our palliative and end of life seminars. I'm just going to take you through some housekeeping and just do a general introduction. Yesterday was our day one, absolutely amazing. So we're very excited about today, and thank you so much to our speakers and also to all our guests for taking some time out of their afternoon. So today we're focusing on planning and keeping well in the community. We've been absolutely delighted by the interest in this important conversation, and we're thrilled that people are sharing their expertise across this week. We hope each day brings a shared understanding of palliative and end-of-life care and the opportunity for collaboration and a conversation that helps to develop really an enriched insight into acute services, planning and keeping well, and reclaiming public understanding of dying, which we're going to be doing tomorrow. Everyone taking part will get the speaker contact details, PowerPoints, CPD certificates, and links to YouTubes for the recordings. Firstly, just really to underline, it would be massively appreciated if you could keep yourselves on mute and keep your cameras off, because it really does make a difference to the recordings as well that we're going to send out. Just to remind everyone, by joining the meeting, you have agreed to us recording and sharing it. There will be a bar showing that it is being recorded, which should be showing up on your screens now. If I could ask that any questions go into the chat box. We will also pick up probably a couple of questions each at the end of each presenter session. Everything else will be shared, or everything will be answered, all comments will be noted, and that will be shared with you when we send out the presentations. If you want to introduce yourselves in chat box, please do. We would love people to use this opportunity to connect and learn more about each other's organisations. And if you have anything on your organisation that you would like to share, please just send them to the community services at cornwallhospicecare.co.uk. If you have any problems with viewing, seeing the presenter, please, and you have the whole view of the speaker, you can pin a speaker by hovering over their name at the bottom left. And if you right click on the three dots, you will have the option of pinning and unpinning. So speakers will stay in full screen mode automatically, we think. So fingers crossed, all of that goes to plan. Just like to reiterate, really, this is a fun, interactive discussion and conversation. We really do want your feedback, and Lolly's going to be posting a survey monkey in the chat box and asked people to evaluate the seminar afterwards. So while our subjects are serious, we also want this to be an enjoyable experience for everyone and to improve what we do going forward. So please participate in the survey and give us your feedback. So in terms of just going through, I guess, the very essence of community, I'm just going to do a very short introduction really on social prescribing. So it's a great way, I think, to start the conversation, because this is how I met Lolly in the Cornwall Hospice community team to start with, which has led to us working together on these fantastic community engagement events. And it's also led to the development of loss and grief cafes working out in the community and many other initiatives that we hope to take forward. So it just shows the power of coming together with different roles, looking at how we can utilise what we do and the social capital that's available out there in the local communities. So social prescribing really is people's health is determined really by a range of different things, social, economic and environmental factors, and social prescribing really seeks to address people's needs in a holistic way. It aims to support people to take greater control of their own health. And the evolution of social prescribing sees link workers working in local communities within primary care networks of GP surgeries, and works to link people to existing local networks, peer support, volunteering, and working from a personal, strength-based approach. So it works with local community influencers that are out there doing it every day, providing amazing services and resources and giving their time to make a difference. And what we want to do is build on that organic network, and then for us to be able as social prescribers to remove ourselves from that situation and people to be able to thrive where they live. It's all about providing as much choice and control over their lives and an improved sense of belonging when people get involved in those groups or develop their networks, which for whatever reason really, it happens to all of us in our life, become broken down. And the importance of signposting to relevant specialist support, like Cornwall Hospice Care and many others, when that specialist support is required. It really is about developing community-centred practice and the importance of working with a wide range of professionals, how we engage as social prescribers in surgery MDT meetings so that it is a really linked up service to the individual, and working and engaging within existing health and wellbeing pathways. So I hope that that kind of starts our community and staying well forum off to a good start. And you don't want to hear from me for the whole of the afternoon. So I'm going to hand over now to Sol Ridley, who is a community specialist palliative care nurse.
Hi there, folks. I'm hoping you can see me. Those who know me well know that my abilities in technology are limited, and I'm going to try and share PowerPoint that we have, which I don't seem to be able to find. Is that there? Can anyone let me know?
Yeah, I can only see at the moment a Teams meeting, so I can't see the presentation.
Right, okay.
I think it might be at the bottom of your screen, Sol.
Saul, do you want me to
Is
try
it
and share?
there?
It's Angela.
Angela, that would be a great help. I
Only
have
if I
got
can,
it up
I'll give
on.
it a go.
I've got it up on my screen, but I can't seem to.
Yeah, you need to share from far left when you share your screen.
Mhm.
So it's choosing the right.
No,
That's it. That's it.
We've got it up, so.
Yep, great.
That's
Just need
great.
to go into slideshow, and then you're all off. Ready.
Okay.
That's
Are
great.
you doing that, Angela, or is that me? I don't know where that came
I think
from.
it's me, actually.
Angela, I'll rely on you. Thank you very much.
Tell me when you want to change screens.
Sure. Well, welcome to the three of us. Slide one obviously just indicates very briefly that we do see ourselves very, very strongly as one county-wide team. The community specialist palliative care nurses are across 3 localities. And in each locality, there's a team lead, myself, Angela in the west and Janet in the north and east. And we are a service that resolutely and steadfastly likes to be seen as one team, even though we have to operate within those localities. And I think it's for the identity of health service provision in Cornwall very important to maintain that. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of times that patients have talked to each other either in waiting rooms pre-COVID or online nowadays about the inequities of care that they suddenly feel are happening from the north to the west. So we do stand by that one county team and a single approach. On slide 2, keeping well, it's I would say on the surface somewhat of a bland and uninspiring term. But if you scratch away at the surface and dig deeper and keep digging, that's, I think, where a relationship is built. And inevitably, as community specialist palliative care nurses, that goes from keeping well to dying well. But there is a huge team active in the dying well arena. GPs, district nurses, physios, OTs, social workers, therapists of all kind. So frequently people ask, well, what do we need you lot for? So we try and indicate on slide 3 some of the aspects of the role that we do. And in specialist palliative care, those specialist nurses come from a fairly wide range of backgrounds. But normally they've got a background in oncology or hospice care and or community experience. And this all heads toward that second point of expert assessment. And it's the expert assessment that deals with the complex problems. When we assess patients or families as non-specialists, which we do following referral at times, we may well...
Sorry, Cyril, the slides aren't moving.
They're not moving. We're
No.
sorry. We're supposed to be on slide 3.
You just go into slideshow on the top, Angela. On the top bar, it says slideshow, and where it says PowerPoint in big letters.
It is moving on my screen, so I was in front of slide 3, so I don't know why it's not.
Okay, so maybe just click on slide 3.
Try that.
Is that better?
Can you see slide 3?
We can see
Yeah,
it now.
we
Thanks.
can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Technical error. It's the expert assessment that I think will deal with the complex problems, and GPs, community nurses who we work hand in glove with will deal with a heck of a lot of dying well scenarios without expert input. But when we're needed, we need to focus on that complex part of someone's journey, which is why we quite actively discharge patients on and off our caseload. But we're always available through the simple referral or to our primary care teams, normally on the end of a phone. But those are some of the areas that specialist nurses in palliative care will be working with. We'll talk about that a little more in a sec. If we can go to slide 4, which I believe covers MDT working. I would have to say this covers any service who has input with a particular family or patient. The MDT to us is paramount in how we approach things, and best results for patients, as far as we're concerned, always come from an MDT approach. Principally, it's primary care, it's GPs and district nurses, but equally it can be with oncology departments. It could be with specialist services such as a hospice, Curie, all sorts.
Sorry to interrupt again, guys.
Yeah,
Could
I can see there's problems with...
Yeah, could somebody just click on to each slide number as you go through the presentation?
Do you want me to share from this end? Would that make it easier?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
to say
yeah,
we
that'd be
can-
great. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. There we are. How's that?
That's great, thank you. Yeah, so MDT working, a massive and hugely beneficial consequence, I think, of COVID working nowadays, is that we've been forced towards an MDT format, certainly using electronic means, that has enabled us to communicate sometimes much better about what's going on for patients when we're not geographically moving around as we once were. Multidisciplinary team working always starts with primary care with us, because that's where we're based, out in the community. If we can go to the next slide, number 5, I hope will help you understand something about the specialist palliative care nurse role. And it might be all of these aspects that are being used, or it might simply be 1 or 2. It's really that principal role of, I would say, proactive planning service that we provide. frequently we will be doing the complex symptom control. That's traditionally how we get called in, but inevitably it falls very heavily onto the psychological, the family support, and the signposting, helping people find their way through the maze of their own particular journeys. I'm very aware that I've talked around these slides really. The final slide, which is talks about referrals, it just gives you a referral point for the specialist, community specialist palliative care nurses. I must stress that the community SPC physios and OT have their referrals via the SURF system. But when it comes to referrals, we are very vigilant in looking at the appropriate and the inappropriate, because we do have our fair share of inappropriate referrals. But if there is a debate about that, we will always discuss it with the referrer. We will triage and assess and then discuss, sometimes with the patient, sometimes with the patient and family, or with the health carer or referrer. As I've said previously, just because somebody has a terminal diagnosis, whether that's specifically cancer or anything else, doesn't necessarily warrant a referral to us. But 9 times out of 10, we can always find an aspect where our expertise in assessment and signposting or dealing with the problem come into their own. So in terms of navigating the service, the theme of today, we just really want to give you an opportunity to ask anything about the community specialist palliative care nurse service that might be on the tip of your tongue and you've been looking for a way to get an answer. Hopefully between Angela, myself and any of the rest of the team who are present, we'll be able to help you.
Thank you very much, Sol. That was great. Just a couple. Chris has actually just put in the chat, it's been very hard for people not to attend walking for health groups and exercise and meeting up. And in the context of your work, I just wondered how you're coping within the COVID scenario for that sense of isolation that families and individuals might be feeling, and how you're coping with that kind of signposting mechanism at the moment.
I think it's added to the family dependence on us at the moment. The nature of the referrals since the middle of last year have become more emphasised on distress management. That's not simply aiming anything at Trelisk and the amount of cancelled chemos or radiotherapy appointments, which inevitably leads to a more difficult symptom management scenario later on. But I know our colleagues in the hospice find that as well, that unless we're there quickly, we end up with a heavier workload because it becomes more complex, and the options in addressing complex needs simply precipitates a hugely increased emotional response in families and carers. We're dealing with a lot of emotion. I'm amazed that we haven't had as many complaints as I expect us to about the service, because the public at large, as I'm sure everyone feels and notes, are shall we say fractious at times if the smallest thing doesn't go well.
Thank you. Millie from Bristol has just put in that about the multidisciplinary team and the different roles that can be within that, really, a GP, nursing team, palliative care, clinical leads, groups like allied healthcare practitioners, etc., social workers. I'm just wondering if you could just literally just give your thoughts about the real importance of the diversity of a multidisciplinary team meeting, having that range of professionals in the room.
Well, I'm absolutely certain that my colleagues at the hospice and right across the community would agree that a multidisciplinary team is the only way of addressing anyone's healthcare issues, because if you have problems with healthcare and you have issues, you need several sets of ears to listen to the problem, to interpret it properly. Any expert in one particular area, you can have the most eminent oncologist in the world listening to you, but unless you've got a physio sitting next to them to actually pick up on things that an oncologist just doesn't think about, then you're not going to get a holistic care approach. So the MDT method is hugely important to us, and it's something that we're always trying to develop from a patient's point of view in order to get that enhanced level of care.
Thank you. And Millie's also said, thank you for talking us through Sol. I'm concerned about how the support in the final months of a patient and family during the end of life journey is accessed by disadvantaged communities which are isolated by the lack of social capital and demographic inequality. Quite an interesting question as well when you look at Cornwall and, you know, more isolated communities, as well as those people that potentially don't engage with health and social care services. So it'd just be great to get your perspective regarding end of life in this scenario.
We're always perturbed by the fact that we feel at times we're not getting enough referrals from certain areas of society, and it shouldn't become something that raises an eyebrow if you get a referral for one of the homeless community or I don't know, learning disability units or whatever. Some areas we're well aware have very good support networks around them who use people appropriately. Sometimes they don't go far enough in using the available resources, and that's perhaps something that we collectively in specialist palliative care need to look at in marketing service provision in the future, either within establishments or out in the community. I'm totally in agreement with anyone who says, well, there are areas that don't get enough input. I'd agree with that. But unless we have the resource and time to go and seek them out and teach them what we can do to support them, not take over, but support them to get their clients and patients best possible care, then it's going to be one of those things that we're always looking to address.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm just conscious of time because this is a really interesting area for discussion.
Of course, yeah, it could go on.
But what we will do, if there's any other comments or questions, we'll make sure that we circulate those for some responses. And thank you ever so much for you and your team's time today. Really, really appreciate it. It's
our pleasure, and apologies for my appalling technology skills.
It's the content that counts, not the presentations, so don't worry about it. Thanks ever so much.
Okay, thank you.
So now we're going to be moving on to Jo Smith, who's Cornwall Hospice Care Education Services Lead. Over to you, Jo.
Hi Nikki, thank you. It's great to be here today and to share the work that we do collaboratively across the county. With the theme of community services being in mind today, I thought it would be a good opportunity to share the Cornwall and Isles of Scilly end-of-life learning path. As an education team at the hospice, we focus on internal education in addition to external education, but we also work collaboratively with our colleagues in the community and the Acute Trust. So I'll just share my screen now and hopefully.
Saul, would you mind switching your camera off for us?
Sorry.
Please? That's great, thank you. Thanks, Jo.
Okay, is that viewable? Okay, so the Cornwall and Isles of Scilly end-of-life learning path, we came together collaboratively from organisations across the county, and we formed a group called the Cornwall End-of-Life Education Group. We had a key vision in mind that we wanted to make a difference to support all people across the county, regardless of where they were working and regardless of their discipline, to help support them and empower them to provide a positive experience for those people that they were caring for, including their relatives, families, and those important to them. And as you know, Cornwall and Aylesbury can be quite remote in trying to get everybody together. So we wanted to look at a simple concept that would reach far places right across the county to enable us all to come together with an end goal in mind of improving the education offer for people caring for people at the end of life. So we developed this a couple of years ago, actually. We all got round in a room and decided, what can we utilise that's a very good platform that's recognised already to provide like a blended learning approach. So from that, we developed the end of life learning path. We utilised the existing e-learning for health platform, which hosts over 150 sessions around end of life care. And we blended that with our own local approach of trying to increase face-to-face educational offer. Obviously, since we've launched the passport, we've been in the pandemic, so we've naturally kind of shifted to a virtual classroom support as well, but it's not stopped us from moving forward. We support the learning path with a handheld passport. We officially launched the passport and learning path, I should say, back in November 2019, and this was a launch at the Eden Project, and it was supported by Reach Cornwall and funded by the European Social Fund. And today we've had over 500 health and social care staff across Cornwall register for the learning path. And we've also shared the concept with other areas across the country that have been interested. Inside the passport is a vehicle for the individual learner to capture their learning outcomes. We encourage a culture of reflection, so we support learners with reflective practice. Some healthcare workers and social care workers are very much knowledgeable in the reflective practice process, but there's also people out there that do require. So my presentation's been shared. I think someone's taken control of my presentation.
I don't know. Lolly, have you got access to Joe's?
I can do it this end. Just 1 second, let me.
I think Saul's, sorry guys.
Joys of technology. How's that? Can you see that?
Thank you. Yes. I thought, oh, somebody's moving the slides without me knowing. The passport contains, like I said, the learning vehicle. So we've got downloadable inserts where you can record your learning log, reflective practice sheets, evidence sheets. And when someone's finished the learning path, they achieve obviously the certificate, and we have an inspiring end of life care education badge. Next slide, Lolly, please. When we designed the learning path, we wanted to obviously link in with national guidance. We was looking at different aspects to how we could align against focusing on the priorities for care of the dying. So we agreed to look at the high level learning objectives that's identified within the One Chance to Get It Right. So we took these learning objectives and mapped out e-learning sessions linked to the overarching learning objectives, and the next few slides will just demonstrate that. So if we can move to the next slide, Lolly, please. Listed to the left here is the e-learning sessions which we would encourage people to do as part of the end-of-life learning path. Each of these sessions we've linked to the learning objective that we feel helps support the knowledge required to enable staff to deliver high quality care for those who are coming to the end of their life. Obviously, we've linked all this within the e-learning for health. So we have an organisational kind of learning path. So once you've registered for the passport and the learning tool, it's all there for you in one space. But it doesn't limit your learning. It actually can offer a springboard of further learning and education. Next slide, please, Lolly. So here's just an example of a screenshot from one of the e-learning sessions. So for example, one of the overarching learning objectives is for the individual to explain how to address the dying person's comfort, specifically in relation to food, fluids and symptoms. So as a group, we chose the symptom management for the dying adult as a session that we felt best suited that learning objective for the individual. And I'll just give you one more example as well on the next slide. So the next slide looks at how we, as an individual, how we can demonstrate the understanding of the impact of loss and grief, including how we support individuals who are bereaved. So we felt as a group that the bereavement assessment and support session, and again, I've just given an example of the screenshot here, helped improve that individual's skills and knowledge around caring for the bereaved. It enables us to support the individual learner, but also not be too prescriptive. So for example, when people join the learning path, we encourage them to use it as a springboard for further learning and education. Next slide, Lolly. Each organisation has an individual learning link. So we've come together collaboratively to have a key link. So say, for example, your organisation, you want to have a reflective session around your experience with the learning path, or you need some advice and support. We'll put you in touch with your learning link or learning buddy within your organisation, or sometimes that would be myself from the hospice or one of my colleagues, where we can work with you to support you on your end-of-life learning path journey, as little or as much as you require. We host the access to the pathway on Cornwall Hospice Care website. So here you'll find all the information that you need to register for the passport. We then supply that passport to you and the links to the learning link, and we have some user-friendly videos there to support you through that process, or we're also at the end of the phone, or we can have a Teams call with you to guide you on that process. Next slide, Lolly. In summary, if someone wanted to achieve the end-of-life learning path, there's an expectation that they'd do 2 hours of formal face-to-face education. Obviously, since we've moved into a world where that's limited, we accept virtual classroom cases can be done, and these do not have to be done as a 2 full-hour session. These can be done in bite-sized education, so you may have 4 half-hour sessions that you've been attended or facilitated. There's an expectation to complete the 11 core sessions that we've chosen. We went through the 150 modules that are available on the national platform and chose the 11 that we felt suited best against the overarching learning objectives. We then encourage you to choose a session of your choice. So this may be a session around heart failure, it may be one around spiritual care. So anything relevant to your area of practice or your area of interest. We then, as part of the learning path, we have a reflective account process. So to complete your learning path, we encourage you to do a reflective account in practice related to your clinical area, but also have a reflective session with your learning buddy around your whole learning path experience. And we hope that this will then encourage further learning and support for that individual. You can complete the learning path at your own pace. So it's up to the individual whether they complete the path over a period of months or they take 6 to 12 months. It's totally suited to your skill set and your requirements. Once you've completed the pathway, you receive the end-of-life badge and a certificate of completion. So to summarise on the next slide, what we'd like you to do is share this information with your colleagues across the health and social care communities. We're here to support people who sign up with the additional learning. We've got a forthcoming educational event that's going to be organised by Reach Cornwall, and they're going to support like relaunch. So although we've had 500 people sign up to the pathway, we've got thousands of passports available. We've got thousands of completion badges. So we really want to re-energise the end-of-life learning path and support people across the county to engage with this simple yet hopefully valuable ideas that will impact on the patient's care. And that's it, Lolly, thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Absolutely amazing tool to be able to support people at the end of their life. I was just going to ask you a couple of questions. First one, can anyone do it? So I'm just wondering, in terms of talking about community engagement and the role of volunteers, or is it just health professionals?
No, the pathway is available for anybody from social care and healthcare. In fact, recently, one of our members of our end-of-life education group signed up 200 people from the independent social care sector, and we've got interested parties that want to engage as an organisational wide kind of sign up. So, and obviously with the future of educational event that Reach Cornwall are going to support, that will enable us to provide some additional education as well on a virtual face-to-face basis. So myself and our community colleagues and nurses across the county will support that as part of the process.
Fantastic. And just to the earlier point about the inequality at this reaching people that perhaps are not engaging with services in the same way, do you think that using kind of organisations that are running food banks and perhaps some of the kind of outreach organisations, I'm just thinking like Valued Lives, that are running the lorry that is going around the county now, are those the kinds of resources that you'd be looking in terms of outreach out into the community to develop awareness and raise awareness of the passport and how people from those organisations and communities might support people to access end of life?
Absolutely. We feel that the next step is to branch out and get people on board to become learning links throughout the county, so it's more achievable. So we have registered learning links already. There's probably about 10 of us across the county, but obviously to make a bigger impact, we can expand that to other areas, including the aforementioned. Yes.
Brilliant. So a couple of comments. So Kirsten's just said this would be really good for students to complete whilst on placement. And Peter Long has just said, I recommend the pathway. It is so flexible for all participants. So fantastic. I mean, in terms of students, that engagement with those our professionals coming through for the future, I guess that's a key area of focus.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. We've just recently had at the hospice the second year medical student placement for 3 weeks, and because they can't come on site at the moment, we've utilised the learning path. So I had a call with them this morning to see how they were getting on, and they registered like 10 days ago, and their aim is to complete it within their 3 week placement. So it's totally flexible. And also we've pitched it at a level so it's middle of the road. So some of the sessions may feel quite more of a refresh for some people, and others they may find them more challenging, but that's why we go with the concept of allocating a learning buddy to that individual person so that they can be supported if they choose to be.
Brilliant. And just one more before we let you go, because it's such an interesting area to be able to talk about how we use education as a tool to really up the conversation, but also the quality of what everybody's doing. You talked about pathways to develop knowledge, and I mean, there used to be like a degree at Cornwall College in terms of end of life. But so many things have moved out of Cornwall now, and I just wondered, where do you signpost people on to develop their knowledge, and would you kind of recommendation around free training, or is there a website or somewhere that you would signpost people to if they want to develop beyond the passport?
Well, obviously ourselves, Cornwall Hospice Co-Education team, are offering education, a mixture of support, which is free and paid, so depending on the topic. So we try and support across the county in that respect. There's lots of really good educational providers out there across the county, but interestingly, we, as an education group, we've developed the end-of-life learning path. We regrouped last week as a team to look at end-of-life education strategy and education across the whole workforce for Cornwall, across health and social care. So this is something that we are introducing currently, which will be a tiered support process, which will encompass out-of-hours ambulance service, acute sector, health care workers, domiciliary care agencies. So we're looking at the whole approach, and we've got members of the group for palliative care consultants, the specialist palliative care nurses, ourselves here. So we're really working collaboratively, our colleagues in the acute trust, to kind of have a supportive network for further education in Cornwall for end-of-life care.
Amazing. So funnily enough, you mentioned ambulance, and Anita from Yorkshire Ambulance Service just said, don't forget to contact your local ambulance service to get involved in this training. So I guess if people have ideas and think perhaps about different links, is it okay to contact you via the hospice link that we're sharing with everybody, just to perhaps?
Absolutely, yeah, I do. I'll put my email into chat as well. Anyone's free to contact me, absolutely. And please sign up for the passport, the learning path, and the associated passport if it interests you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for that fantastic presentation, and really interesting in terms of how all of that collaboration is coming together to provide a kind of a universal offer. So thank you ever so much.
And I just wanted to say we've got thousands of passports and badges, so be great to get them all out there. Thank you.
I think I might have one more question for you, actually. There's a just very quick. Okay, she said no. Jane's just said no need to read out, so we'll pick that up in the comments later. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you.
So I'm going to hand over to Nikki Lampshire now, who's the manager of the Cove Macmillan services.
Thank
Nikki,
you, Nikki.
would you like me to share?
Or
you okay?
Should be okay, but I'm saying that now I can't find it. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing, I'm not sure where that's gone. So, oh no, I've just found it actually. Hold on. There you go. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's great. Just on slideshow if you can. Perfect.
Great. So, one of the centre managers, job share Radcliffe, and we're both registered nurses as well. So I just thought I'd give a bit of background to the Cove. Apologies to those that know it very well, but the Cove was opened in 2016 and it's based on the Royal Cornwall Hospital site. It sits within, very close to the Cove, sits within the Headland, Sunrise and Mermaid centres. So it's an ideal position for patients if they're going, and relatives if they're going for treatment and appointments. And the Cove services, what we can offer. So we are available Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. We used to be drop-in any time, but obviously with the COVID restrictions from the trust, we have to limit our face-to-face contacts. So a lot of us are working from home at the moment, but that doesn't mean to say we're not available. We're still there with telephone advice and support, and we're still doing virtual sessions, which I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. Before obviously our restrictions, we would usually have a cafe running as well, and we have an army of volunteers that help with that. And along with myself, we also have support officers that will provide emotional support, signposting, any information that people come to us and want help with. So I've put on there about the information leaflets. We have a lot of resources within the Cove. Again, people can't access that at the moment, other than we can post things out. All these information leaflets are available on the Macmillan site, but like me, I don't know if people like me, I like hard copies. So but we can get those sent out to people, and we usually, when we've spoken to people, we can forward that on to them. We've also got a lot of information, things that come up about planning ahead. So maybe if someone's been given a poor prognosis and they would just want to think about where they're going to where they want to be to die, or they want to talk about their wills. There's some really good information there. And the other thing we get asked a lot about is supporting children. So we get parents, grandparents asking about any information that we might have, and we keep a lot of those resources there as well. So moving on to other services that are available, we have a psychological service, which is a team of psychologists and counsellors. And I've put some examples there of what they can help with. So they support people with managing difficult thoughts and feelings relating to their experience of cancer, coping with tests, treatments, coming to hospital. Sometimes if that's going to stop people having their treatment, particularly radiotherapy, if people are having treatment, head and neck cancers, and they're not managing that, then the psychology team can help with that. Sometimes people living with cancer but are worried about dying, then these are all things that this team can support with. And referral to that is via the hospital teams or us as nurses at the Cove. We also have a physiotherapist. We have Mark that works with us, and we're just about to get another physio, well, probably the end of March. She should be starting with us. Mark works with lots of patients that are referred from the hospital team again, looking at prehab, so optimising that physical well-being before people have treatment, and then again post-treatment, maybe post-surgery, thinking about breast care and breast surgery if it's affected lymph nodes and the use of arms, or head and neck surgery with neck and shoulders. And Mark's also a Pilates teacher, so he would normally run Pilates groups, but obviously we've had to put those on hold at the moment, but we are looking at running those virtually, so watch this space. And I've just got a picture there of the gym and the equipment that's available within the Cove building. Also, we have the Macmillan Benefits Advisors. They have an office at the Cove. They're currently working from home, but they can support people living with and beyond cancer as well. I've put their details on there, but if anyone wants to get in touch, then they can always we can refer from the Cove as well. And the advisors can provide advice on benefits that can be claimed, help with applications, and help with access to charitable grants and one-off payments. And like I said, you can contact them through the Cove as well. We also have a dietitian. So Janine works closely with us, and she usually runs a clinic on a Friday from the Cove. And again, she works with the speech and language therapist as well. And it might not always be that a dietitian referral is required. Sometimes we can just provide some information about healthy eating, recipe ideas, particularly for those that maybe have problems swallowing or have lost their taste. Then build up diet, and there's recipes there as well. So moving on, we run a newly diagnosed cancer group, and that's virtual at the moment, but all patients that have been given a recent cancer diagnosis should get offered a chance to join this group. And that aims to support patients and relatives recently diagnosed. This covers the hospital treatments, exercise, nutrition, and mental health needs as well. We also run a hair loss service. That's running virtually at the moment by Brown's Wig Service, but again, patients can contact the Cove and we can put them in touch and arrange a virtual session. Chemotherapy pre-assessments are run by the Headland unit nurses on a regular basis within the Cove. We also run taster sessions for yoga, relaxation, Tai Chi, smoothie workshops, and we're looking to run a relaxation virtual group because we know that that's been requested by quite a few people. So that's our plan with that in the next month or so. We do a lot of signposting, and particularly to support groups. We usually liaise with the CNSs about what groups that are available, and sometimes that might be actually run by the CNS as well, but we can put people in touch for site-specific cancer groups. And then finally on this slide, I've just put the Look Good, Feel Better. So this is a cancer charity that at the present time is running online workshops for people living with cancer. Their workshops cover hair care, hair loss, makeup tips, and just techniques to make people feel more confident with what's going on with them, particularly if there's hair loss. They've just started men's sessions as well. So there's a skin fitness workshop which we're promoting. And again, all this can be found at the Cove. So if you get in touch with us, we can put you through to this. And then finally, I just wanted to mention the Teenage and Young Adult Service, the TYA service for 16 to 24-year-olds. We have a room for them at the Cove, and you can see the jukebox there on the slide. And within the team that supports these young adults, there's a consultant, the TYA nurses, psychologists, and a physio, and they provide age-appropriate cancer treatments and facilitate advice and support. And they also run a peer support group. So finally, I just thought it'd be nice to put some feedback that we've had from patients and relatives that have used the Cove. And we are really missing seeing people at the moment. I'm sure we all are, with the not being able to do the face-to-face contact. And where we had the cafe open, people could just drop in. So we're really keen to promote that we are still here, even though the building is not open. Drop-in service. So we've got the email address there and telephone number, and what we're putting on through the support group, and we're hoping to get a Facebook page as well. So look out for that. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. What a fantastic provision. I mean, it's, you know, such a holistic approach to everything, Nikki. Obviously, I think it's fairly obvious from what you just presented, but clearly patient voice into building the service provision at the heart of everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. We even just this week having feedback from patients and making sure that what we're doing is what they want. Complementary therapies has come up recently, so we've just got funding for a Reiki practitioner. So yeah, as people want things, then we are open to ideas, be that from patients, staff groups. Yeah, we're really keen to run what people want.
And just another question, really. Obviously, Cornwall, particularly, we see a lot of people that perhaps move down here to retire, and often then are far away from families or have that kind of sense of isolation. I'm just interested too, if people are on their own, and perhaps if their partner die, what do you see an important role for advocacy within the Cove, and also leading on from that, really the role of volunteers?
Yeah, so the Macmillans have a telephone buddy service, and actually it's something we've been talking about as well, because particularly at the moment with COVID and isolation, so we do still signpost at the moment to the telephone buddies through Macmillan, but again, if people pick up the phone, then there's always someone on that phone to talk to, so we are available for exactly that as support.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Obviously, again, it would be fantastic to speak to you for longer, but we're on our schedule for all the presentations. So any comments or the questions will be picked up in the chat and we'll distribute them to you. But thank you to you and all of the team at the Cove for all the work you're doing, and also for taking time out of your day today to come and share everything that you're doing as well. Thank you ever so much.
That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And now
Nikki.
we're going to hear from Sue Egerton, who's Marie Curie Clinical Nurse Manager.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Sorry, Sue, I think Nikki's slide is still up.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone... That's better. Thanks, Nikki. All yours, Susan.
Lovely, thank you. Can you see that, everybody?
No. Do you want me? It's easier if you share it, but if you
No, I can. Let me go again. Just a sec.
it's the far left that you need to click on when you're given choices.
Yeah. Just bear with me. I'm sorry.
Sorry, take your time. You're not on your own today with technical issues.
Oh dear. Right. We'll try again.
That's great. If you go into slideshow, that we should be good to go.
That should be. No, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Yes, slideshows. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Lovely. Right. So, hi everybody. My name is Sue Egerton, and I am the clinical nurse manager, and I work for Marie Curie here in Cornwall. So I've been asked to come today to talk a little bit about the type of services that we offer in Cornwall. So basically, we do offer two services in Cornwall, and obviously they're both end-of-life care services. So what we provide, the Kernow CCG commission our care in Cornwall for an end-of-life service for their clients. Now, up until about 2 years ago, we had what we called a planned night variable service, and that was patients were referred to us if they were diagnosed with palliative care needs, and we would go and support them on night visits, giving them nursing care as they needed it. So that was the way our service went for a long time. And it's worked very well, and we've provided a lot of care for people. But what was needed was felt that there needed to be a more responsive service, a more round-the-clock service for some of our end-of-life care patients, especially for those patients who were at the very end of their lives and perhaps were rapidly deteriorating, because being there overnight was a good help to the family, but it wasn't really enough. So about 2 years ago, a new service was developed, and it was a pilot. It was originally going to run for a year, but it has been extended now. So we're still running now, just over 2 years on. The pilot is in West Cornwall, and we've developed a new service, which is a around-the-clock 24-hour service and 7 days a week opening for referrals for patients that are in need of our care. So we can give up to 4 visits a day from our team of HCAs and nurses. So we get our referrals from different areas. It might be from the district nurses, it might be from the specialist palliative care, it could be from community hospitals in Cornwall, it may be from Trelisk, from the acute services, and occasionally it could even be a GP surgery. So they come through to us, and we work closely with the teams in the CCG and the NHS to secure care for those patients. Yeah, so I think I've mentioned that. So it's a 24-hour service, and it takes referrals for patients whose condition is rapidly deteriorating. So we go in and we can assess the needs of the patient. We can do acuity visits to patients who have been with us for a while to see if we're still meeting their needs, or if their needs are better met elsewhere. Most of our patients that we see on the new service are very end of life, and so we're there to support them in quite an acute way at home, really. So the planned night variable service still continues, and it sort of merges with the day service now in the West. We still don't have a day service for patients, multi-visit service in the mid or east Cornwall at the moment, but we are hoping that we might be able to extend our service to areas where they don't have those services. But it's been a really successful rollout, considering what we've all been through in the last year with COVID. So the challenges that we would have had were actually setting up the service, and the COVID pandemic came along not long after we'd set the service up, which caused everybody, I think, a lot of problems. We've had to form an alliance between the CCG and West Cornwall CHC and the CFT clinical teams to build on a partnership and develop the systems. But on top of that, those systems that were in place obviously have had to change. Staff have been redeployed into different areas within the NHS as the pandemic has moved. So we've had to actually encompass those changes and move with them as our service has developed. So we've tried to work together to research and evaluate the clinical models for triaging end-of-life care patients. Patients are usually referred to us, and they would be in receipt of the end-of-life care fast-track paperwork. So basically that's the two services, our hands-on services that we do provide. But I just wanted to also draw your attention to the other services that Marie Curie provide nationally, but obviously also in Cornwall. So if I just click off my PowerPoint a minute and go on to, I think I've got it saved here, my website. Can you all see that website?
At the moment.
You can, okay.
No, we can only see the end of your presentation. So.
Okay, so what I can do is I can get this one up instead. So excuse me while I just. Try to share this. I should be able to share the screen that I want to share now with you.
Yeah, that's on.
You're on there. So hopefully it will follow me now. I've hopefully been able to get onto the website that will follow me. So Marie Curie, as you know, is a big national organisation, charity, and we do have a website which anybody can go on to, which we're on now. It has different areas on the website. So has the page moved forward? Hopefully it has.
It has, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got different areas for information and support. And in that information and support, we've got areas where people might want to contact us on the phone because they've been recently diagnosed, or they're living with a terminal illness, or they're caring for somebody, or when somebody dies, benefits and finances, end of life during coronavirus. There's a helpline, a free helpline that you can go on to. and we've got an online chat as well. We have bereavement support, which anybody can just get support for if they just ring on our national line, and they can book a call. If you want to talk, but you would prefer us to call you, and check in and chat. So I just thought it would be a good idea to share this with you, so that if you've got patients and families that are struggling perhaps with where they go for help, this is a good place that they can start. We've got publications and resources that we have for people to read and go on. So sometimes it's about people are wondering what they do with, there might be some legal requirements that they're not sure about. So we've also got paper copies of all of these things. So if somebody rang up and said to us, actually, I would quite like to find out a little bit more about this, but I don't go online, we can send it as a hard copy in a pack for people, because we do realise that a lot of our elderly clients, they may not have access or know how to get onto the internet. So if they've got a phone number they can phone, we can do the rest, so we can get in touch with them. Yeah, so we go into benefits and finances as well. And when somebody dies, so what do you do? I mean, we get this a lot in our services, is that people don't always, for different reasons, haven't planned ahead. And it's a shock. And when somebody dies, they need a lot of assistance, they need a lot of help. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into what we do here in Cornwall and nationally.
Thank you ever so much. It's really helpful, and I think some of the points you raised as well, particularly at the end, Sue, about what, when somebody dies, and some, families are in shock. Actually, the processes that you then have to go through are incredibly difficult for people. And even in terms of getting a death certificate, and during COVID, that's been even harder in many ways. So. And I guess too, just, we keep talking about inequalities, which has come up a couple of times today. And if people have a learning disability or other issues, and then they need additional support. So all of these resources are amazing. Just to also add, I'm assuming, I haven't checked for a little while, but in terms of Cornwall Link, usually all of these services, if anyone's in Cornwall, there is an amazing resource called Cornwall Link, which lists all of these and other services. So that is there. We've got a couple of questions for you. One from Wendy. Can I just check that CNS based in the hospital can refer to Marie Curie, or does the referral need to come from primary care? And if so, how do we make this referral?
Okay, so yes, the answer is you can refer from hospital, and we have a referral line that you ring. It's our coordination centre in Cornwall. So I'll just look it up a minute. I've got it right here. Sorry, I should have put that onto my PowerPoint, shouldn't I? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What I'll do is I'll put it in the chat. Okay, it's an 0800 number, and you can ring them up. But we take online referrals as well, so we've got a website as well that you can contact. But I'll put that in the chat in a minute.
Wonderful. So Wendy's also put, because Judy has put some information there, I want to thank Marie Curie for the support they provide from a personal perspective. My family have benefited from your service. I just wanted to also ask some of that, just to check. I mean, we have, you mentioned fast track. I wonder if you could just explain for anyone that doesn't know what that is.
Okay, so it's a funding stream really. Fast track is what professionals will use if they. So normally, if a patient needs to have some care, they have to go get funding from CHC, and it can be quite a lengthy process. So what Fast Track was designed for was for people who have got or are expected to be entering into a phase of rapid deterioration, and they're suffering from an end-of-life illness. The Fast Track form can be raised, and it can provide the patient with care as fast as it can be arranged, and that could be as fast as 12 hours on the same day, depending on the information that we get from the referrer. So if we get a really good referral that's got clear information, then we know what people need and what they want, and they fit the criteria, then that patient can get care extremely fast if there are care services available for packages of care.
Brilliant, thank you. And just another comment really, so from Nicola Evans, she's just said thank you to those so far who have mentioned, as a reminder, the people we support with learning disabilities who also may require these services. Also the accessible information that will be useful for them or their families and carers. Thank you so much. And Jenny has just put up the Marie Curie Cornwall coordination number in the chat. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, she's great with numbers, and I'm afraid I'm terrible. So I was hoping to do that, Jenny.
Thank you to you and all your team. What a phenomenal service you provide. And again, I mean, gosh, I'm so grateful everyone taking their time out from an incredibly busy time at the moment, and in incredibly difficult circumstances. So thank you. Once again, you've got a thank you from Wendy in the chat box, and we'll pass on any other questions or comments. So thanks, Sue, much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sue. Can I ask those that have recently joined to make sure your cameras are off, please? Thank you so much.
So now we're going to be handing over to Gwendoline Treseder, who is the occupational therapist for Cornwall Hospice Care Community Services.
Are you there, Gwendoline?
Have we lost Gwendoline?
Tracy, do you know if Gwendoline's available?
I'm just going to check. Bear with.
We need some hold music, Nikki.
We do. I could sing, but I'm not sure what everybody would feel about that.
I know she was having problems accessing it the normal way, so she may have gone on to another computer. Thanks for everybody being patient today with all these technical issues. You know, certainly from this end, I feel like a duck with my little feet going like mad, trying to resolve all these issues.
Is there any chance we could swap things around and bring Kieran on?
Yeah, why don't we do? Are you here, Kieran?
Yeah, I am indeed.
Okay, well, let's go for it. Thank you.
You've got me on the hop though, so you'd have to give me
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
If you don't mind, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
So whilst Kieran's getting ready, I'll just give him a proper introduction. So Kieran is going to be speaking to us shortly, and he's a consultant paramedic, head of integrated urgent care for Kernow Health 111 out of hours palliative GP service. So we'll just wait for Kieran to get his presentation, and thanks ever so much for stepping in a little bit early.
Do you know what? I can't load the slides, but it doesn't matter. I can talk through it without it.
I can do it from this end, Kieran.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, brilliant.
I'll try. Just bear with me.
You'll have to all excuse my poor signal and amateur setup as well. I'm on annual leave this week, so I'm doing it with my poor internet at home.
Oh, thank you so much for doing that.
That's all right, no problem. So anyway, Nikki, thank you for the introduction. So I often introduce myself as the Minister of Made-Up Titles because I've ended up with so many job titles. I forget them, and they're so long. I rarely manage to get through them all. I'm here as Kieran, Kieran from the Out of Hours service for Cornwall. And it used to be known as the Out of Hours GP service, but actually we've diversified since the most recent contract, where it's a now full integrated urgent care service. So what I was intending to do was just to kick off with a bit of a background of what that is, and then talk about our sort of palliative care component through that. And I noticed I've got a couple of my colleagues on here listening in today. So if you guys want to come in at any point, please feel free to tell me I'm wrong. But the Integrated Urgent Care Service is a collaboration of three main providers. The main contract is held by Royal Cornwall Hospital Trust, and we're the only integrated urgent care service in the country that originates with an acute trust. Now, what that does is it puts us in a really powerful and an important position within the Cornwall and Isles of Scilly health and social care system. So unlike a lot of providers throughout the country, the integrated urgent care service, it truly is that, as opposed to being a out of hours GP service like we would have seen some years ago. Other partners within it, the main delivery partner is Kernow Health, and that's who I work for. Kernow Health being a large partnership of all of the GP surgeries in Cornwall. And the front end telephone aspect, if you dial 111, is managed by Vocare. Vocare have got call centres all over the country. Ours used to be in Taunton, but is now in Newcastle. So if you phone and speak to somebody and it doesn't sound like they're in Cornwall, initially it's because they probably aren't. Now, the work we do through our palliative care line is a little bit different, but I'll talk through that in a second. But the service is split from the front end call handling aspect, which is managed using the NHS pathway system, as with all 111 providers throughout the country. There are some clinicians in the main call centre who offer some clinical advice to the call handlers on the calls that come in, and support and manage them to make sure they stay on the right track. And then the bit that's closest to my heart is our CAS team, Clinical Advisory Service, which is based both in Cudmore House in Truro, at various community hospital bases throughout the county where our clinicians work remotely, and most recently with clinicians working at home, logging in on laptops and using recorded lines based on software-based telephones, which are quite neat, actually. They're quite impressive. The CAS is close to my heart, the local one. Unlike a lot of services throughout the country, we really invest our time and effort in getting some really good quality senior clinical triage as early as we can in the calls. And that both helps with a lot of the anecdote that certainly some of my ambulance service colleagues on here will hear from other services around the country. A lot of work can go to the ambulance services from the 111 system. In Cornwall, we downgrade somewhere around 98% of all the calls that were going to go to the ambulance service, and that's managed in our local clinical assessment service. That's important because that allows us to catch any patients who may have palliative care needs or end of life needs who have called through the main 111 number and not our local number, and it's often a nicer approach to be able to speak to them over the phone and send a GP or others around, rather than to turn up in a big blue shiny light truck and teams who don't sort of specialise in that area. So the calls that you may all have heard of before is our palliative care line. So we've got a palliative care line, which is a local dial number. If you've got your pen and paper ready, it's 01872 224 050. And that number is for patients or health professionals or those who are calling in specifically with palliative care needs, whether it be representatives themselves or advocates of the patients they're contacting us on. We do also have health professional lines, which I will often hear groans from various clinicians of their ability to call through them. And that's actually something we're developing as a service at the moment. So those lines would be that you would dial 111, you press 9, you press star, you press 5, 6 or 7, depending on where you're calling from. What I'm really keen to do is that we've had a lot of feedback that actually, whilst that works in theory and it's part of the national guidance, it's a bit rubbish and it's quite difficult for our healthcare professional teams to get through to us. So we're in the midst of setting up a local dial number at the moment that will make all that a little bit easier. So you may all be pleased to hear that. But if a patient calls us on that 01872 224 050 number, the call handlers will immediately add their case onto our clinical queue, where our GPs, nurse practitioners, advanced paramedics, advanced clinical practitioners, specialist paramedics, and various other roles will pick out those calls and call those people back. Those are actually our highest acuity call we receive. All of those patients currently expect a call back for us within 10 minutes, and our shift managers are really, really hot on that. As soon as those calls come in, they'll be flagging to somebody. We've got patient X here who really needs contact as soon as we can. Now, there is some challenge in that. That number receives a lot of calls for patients who do have symptom control needs and do have urgent needs. We also receive a lot of calls from patients who are at the other end of the spectrum of palliative care, who are needing sort of more pastoral support. And we've even had the odd one or two for help and advice on getting them a cup of tea. So there's a real variance of acuity that comes through there. I put on the presentation that the main reasons that we're contacted. The top one, I think, is the healthcare professional line. So we're there in the out of hours. We are now there slightly during the day as well, because of some of the ED and MRU validation work we're doing around the Think 111 programme. But from a palliative and end-of-life care perspective, we're majority an out-of-hours service. We receive a significant amount of calls from healthcare professionals in that out-of-hours period. Some of those are the calls that during the day would traditionally go to the general practitioner or other teams that are out in the practices. We are looking at the potential of how we can grow that and how we can do more with that line moving forward. But unfortunately, some components of our service do remain traditional and mainly out of hours focused, and that being one of them. I think probably unsurprisingly to all of you, another call we receive regularly is around symptom control. Those nearing end of life who are starting to have symptoms and require anticipatory or symptom control prescribing. We've got a number of ways of doing that. We can do that with our district nurse colleagues who work till at varying times in the evening, but we can get in contact with them. We can support with prescriptions for syringe drivers or stat doses. And we can also support with sending some of our teams out to see people at home. Now, we put two specific cars on to do this, and there are urgent care cars. We've got one in the east and one in the west. It was a brainchild of Mark Walcott before I. And what those cars do is they have a far smaller remit than the main sort of GP and advanced clinician home visiting cars we have. What they will do is they will go out and see people who have got blocked catheters. They will go out and confirm death for those that passed away, and they'll go out and manage a significant amount of symptoms in those reaching end of life. And actually, in doing that, we've had some really helpful support from the hospice in developing a programme of education. But what those teams really do get is a lot of exposure to those cases and a lot of experiential development. Now, what I always say is we're not a specialist palliative care service. Our specialism is generalism. And I saw Kath there. I think he's probably heard me say that quite a few times before. But what we do have is teams who are experienced in specific areas of our service and able to pick those up. What we don't do as a service at the moment is set up syringe drivers. We've put a lot of work in previously looking at how we can do that. But unfortunately, because we work majoritively as lone workers, there's a few challenges we couldn't quite overcome. But nevertheless, we have cars who will go out to urgent visits as a crisis response service, and they'll manage these patients and their symptoms as they arise. And I think the other one that we do often receive calls for, which Saul mentioned on earlier, and we don't, we're very much an urgent crisis sort of service rather than a long-term management one. That's far better with the general practitioners who know these patients so well, and Saul and Angela's team. But we do offer quite a lot of crisis psychological support to people. We receive a significant amount of calls from people who aren't having symptom crises, but are having crisis of management, or relatives who are really struggling, really anxious, and needing a comforting conversation and sometimes talking through why things have progressed as quickly as they have. So that's something we do also often receive. So that's the service, really. We receive calls at the front end. We discuss and triage people over the phone. We'll go out and visit them in the shiny car that you saw there. We've got 10 of those that scoot about the county. And we're there for you if any of you should need us for health professional advice. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. It was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of something that's developed quite rapidly over the years. But thank you for letting me come along and talk you through it today.
Thanks ever so much, Kieran, and sorry for putting you on the spot in terms of starting early. I just a couple of questions as well. I'm just wondering, what do you think when you look at your service, the importance of advanced care planning and power of attorney, etc., in terms of patients and their families being able to reduce that anxiety that then means you're not actually seeing so many people in crisis? And do you feel that that's all part of the education that we need to be doing around end of life care?
Absolutely. So I think it's improving. I think our communication is improving. I used to work in general practice myself and saw improvements even when I was there. I think, shameless plug here, but I think we're still lacking that single record of patients' care plans. And I know we're starting to roll out the Coordinate My Care programme within Kernow Health. My colleague Joe Francis is doing that, and I really would urge any of you that want to be involved in that to please do so. It's really their both input into their the care that they wish to receive, and also to advise us as health professionals of what their wishes would be. So yeah, absolutely. I can't push how important that is enough.
Thank you. So a couple of things in the chat. Obviously, we're going to put the numbers there, and we just saw it flash up on the presentation, so that's great. Julie's just said, excellent service, always good feedback from my patients. Anita from Yorkshire has just said, do you get access to the EOL care plan before you attend the patient's property?
That's a very good question. So we rely on what is almost a steam-driven system at the moment, and we rely on GPs writing us care plans for patients, and then emailing them to us or faxing them, as they were until very recently, and we would flag them on the patient's record. So we do sometimes, but what we don't get is patients that aren't expected to die or aren't nearing the end of their journey. We often don't have information on those, and I'm really hoping that that's going to bring things together when we get Coordinate My Care in. But I think rolling something like that is going to be really challenging, especially given how busy general practice is at the moment with vaccination and other things. But it is a challenge, and it's a challenge we really need to overcome. I've arrived on scene both in my ambulance service days and in the out of hours where we haven't had much information. So it is a challenge.
I guess that also must feed into things like, mental capacity, so there's more deprivation of liberty, all the things that kind of surround what people really require from having that one single document, as you said, so everybody's got all the knowledge of the role that people play in their life, but also where they are even at the end of their life in terms of decision making.
Absolutely. I put the phone number in there. I've no idea how I made it so big, so apologies for that.
Millie has just said, how is personal health budgets playing its part within the Southwest personalised care, as this should be an integral part to support those vulnerable patients? And thanks, Kieran.
Very, very good question. I have limited involvement in personal health budgets, I'm afraid, in the out of hours, so I couldn't really comment on that.
Okay, thank you. Lolly's just said, many thanks, Kieran, so much for taking the time to talk today. And Siobhan has just said, the service is so invaluable. Hope special notes completed on discharge from the hospice and by CSPCN helpful.
Absolutely are. The more information we can get, the better. And we put a really good bit of work in place around getting some of the community matron notes onto maxims as well, which is really helpful. We're coming together with it. We're getting there on a long journey, and there's a lot of I say it tongue in cheek with the steam driven. It's technology that that holds us back, not the willingness of people to do it. So we're going to get there. I have no doubt that people of Cornwall will pull this off.
Brilliant. With your energy and enthusiasm, even listening to you today, I'm sure we will. So just a couple more comments and then we'll go on to the next speaker. But just from Catherine, I agree, Kieran, there is improvement, but still a long way to go. It's good to have sessions like this to link it all up together. Anita says, we flagged the plans on the 999 system for clinical staff to view. Jenny, Alan, thank you, Kieran. Both the Marie Curie staff and the patients and families we support find your service invaluable. So lots and lots of praise for the service. So again, I guess it's absolutely great to bring all of and to raise awareness of what is available, but also the plans that you're developing. So thank you so much, Kieran, and thank you for giving up your holiday to be here this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
No problem at all, and it's always really good to hear positive praise. But the final message I always like to leave with is, as much as I like hearing the positive, I also really like hearing the things that we can do to improve. So if any of you do come across anything or have any ideas, please don't hesitate to get in contact. It's no problem at all.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And now we are going to hand over to Gwendoline. And Gwendoline is the occupational therapist, Cornwall Hospice Care Community Service.
So hopefully it's working this time. Yes. Can you hear me, Nikki?
I can indeed. Thank you.
Fabulous. The computer's got it in for me today. I've had issues twice, so hopefully this will go without a hitch from now. And Kieran, my sincere apologies, and thank you very much for chipping in so quickly. So let me put that on. Are you able to see that? Yeah.
No, not yet, not yet, Gwendoline, no.
Okay, why is that not sharing then? Okay, I think I know what I've done.
Share and then far left to select.
See, that's kind of that glitch completely discombobulated me, I think. Here we go, click share. And hopefully it's going to come up for me.
If you pop it in slide.
Can you see that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. My name is Gwendoline, and I'm an occupational therapist at Cornwall Hospice Care. You still got it? Yeah. I work mostly nowadays on the neighbourhood hub service, which is part of our community services, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you about, is the community services that we provide. And here's the phone number in case you need to speak to one of the team. I'm struggling to make things move forwards for some reason. Right, let's have a look here.
Might be to do with the arrow keys on your.
I'm on somebody else's computer as well, so
arrow keys on your keyboard might help.
Here we go. Now it's working.
Perfect.
Okay, right. Hopefully that's the third and final glitch. So as most of you know, because you were here yesterday, Cornwall Hospice Care, we've got the two hospices in St Austell and Hale, and the advice line for healthcare professionals. And then in 2017, we looked at broadening our services a little bit to patients and their carers in the community, and also to open up the conversations around death and dying with the general public, and also with healthcare professionals who might not be so comfortable with that subject. So as part of the current services that we have our community engagement team who have started with projects around death cafes and looking at contacts in the community to share information, making community links, and have now grown to organising amazing conferences like this one. And they're also leading and joint working on other ventures like the community friendship cafes and the listening ear that I'm going to talk to you about, as well as and then I'll talk to you a bit more about our neighbourhood hubs. So the community friendship cafes were developed to provide support, information and signposting to people in the community. They're very much a joint venture with other organisations in the community, social prescribers, link workers. You've got the list of partners that are at the bottom of that poster, so it shows you the people who've been involved in all of this, and the mix of partners is different depending on what area the cafe is in. So it's supposed to provide a safe environment for people to have those conversations around bereavement and loss in their broadest sense. So it's not necessarily, the loss of a person. It can be the loss of a pet. It can be the loss of work. It can be all sorts of different losses. And then, trying to address social isolation around this. So this started just over a year ago and was accessible to anyone who wanted to attend. As part of the developments, we had 10 planned in 2020 in Perranporth, Truro and Camborne, and looking at developing this same model to replace community services we were running in other parts of the county. And then COVID got in the way, as it did for everybody. So we had to move to a virtual platform, and the community engagement team has worked really hard, created a Facebook group, which was initially closed to people previously attending, but has now become an open group where everybody can join, and there's material being posted every day on lots of different things, not just restricted to death, dying and bereavement, but all sorts of things around well-being as well. So that's something that we will continue post-COVID as well, alongside the face-to-face cafes, if we are able to go back to that. And you've got the link there underneath to the Facebook group that is run. So go and check it out at some point. The other service that the community engagement team have been working very hard on is our listening ear service, which emerged from the loss of those face-to-face friendship cafes because of in the first lockdown. And obviously the Facebook group covered quite a lot of things around information, but you lose that ability to have that informal conversation with someone. So that service was set up at that point. It offers 8 sessions of telephone support, which includes the assessment and then the follow-up, and will cover emotional support, bereavement, practical issues, signposting, physical and mental health. It's not a counselling service, but it's somewhere where people can explore the difficulties and get a good ear to being listened to, but also being signposted to other places or referred to other places. So far, we've supported 50 people, 50 clients, making over 140 calls since the launch at Easter. And that's very much for patients and carers and relatives dealing with terminal illnesses and who are isolated and vulnerable or experiencing the death of a loved one. And it's run by our community engagement team who are trained in having those conversations and in the relevant signposting. So the other service that we run is the neighbourhood hubs, which is where I work mostly, and that was set up now 3 years ago now. In fact, Lolly had to correct me yesterday because I'd put 2, but it's actually 3. Time flies. And the aim of the hubs has always been from the beginning to achieve the best possible quality of life for patients by providing rehabilitative, non-pharmacological and psychosocial intervention and support to empower patients and carers to achieve those things on the right-hand side. So very much about helping people to understand their medical condition better, learning strategies to self-manage symptoms, remaining as independent as possible, if that is their aim, and if within the limitations of their illness and environments, maintaining participation in meaningful activities and looking at goals that they may have. Maintaining and improving quality of life is very much at the forefront of our thinking all of the time. And remaining at home if that's what they wish, or in their preferred place of care. So we have a referral criteria for this, so it's very much looking at patients with a palliative or terminal illness or advanced progressive disease, you know, so very much somebody who will not recover from their illness and is experiencing difficult symptoms, whether they might be physical or psychosocial. And what we were offering was one-to-one therapy treatments, mostly around occupational therapy and physiotherapy and complementary therapy, and well-being workshops and developing educational workshops. So it's not a home-based service. We have very experienced and amazing colleagues in the community who deliver home-based service, and we very much dovetail and communicate with them around patients. So patients generally need to be able to come to us. We might have the odd home visit, particularly from myself as an occupational therapist, if I need to see the environment in terms of maybe looking at equipment or adaptations, things like that. But otherwise, it'll be they need to be able to come to us. Unfortunately, complementary therapy is on hold at the moment as part of what we're able to offer. So pre-COVID, we were running 4 neighbourhood hubs, half a day each per week, one in Penzance, one in Wadebridge, and one at each of the hospices. We have not gone back to face-to-face work with patients, partly because we are shielding the hospice and because we're all working across the inpatient unit and the neighbourhood hubs. So we need to be really careful about where we put ourselves and protecting our units, basically. So we've now moved to virtual work over the telephone or video calls for one-to-one consultations, which I approached with trepidation, but actually works surprisingly well. And certainly from an occupational therapy point of view, I can do probably 80% of my work over the telephone very well. So in terms of little stats, last year, in 2020, from January to December, we had 87 referrals. And I think we saw quite a significant dip with COVID, because a lot of people, you know, because people assume that the hubs were closed, rightfully, in terms of face-to-face they were, but there's still some support being provided quite extensively for patients over the telephone. And from April to December, we provided 159 telephone consultations, so assessment and treatment over the telephone. In terms of future planning, we're looking at making our venues more permanent so that we're not packing every time, and we can then offer more on those venues for more of the time. So looking at extending group support, post-bereavement practical support, you know, and developing further joint ventures with other organisations in the community. So what the kind of work that we do is this, basically working around the patient, and those are the kinds of things that we'll touch on. So things around fatigue management education and helping people problem solve their day-to-day around their fatigue, because for a lot of our patients that's not going to be better, the fatigue. So it's very much about learning to live with it and adjust their life so that they can concentrate on the important and valuable activities. Maximizing their function for whatever is relevant to them. Advanced care planning is a big chunk of what I do, trying to open up that conversation with patients, certainly offering it. They may not be ready, but they know that the offer is there, and we can talk about a lot of aspects of advanced care planning with them, looking at goal setting, equipment at home and adaptations. Physio will look a lot around mobility equipment and assessments, breathlessness management, those sorts of things. I do a lot of work around anxiety management, and I've made a little link there between breathlessness, anxiety, and I plopped relaxation in the middle, because as we know, anxiety and breathlessness work very much together. So relaxation kind of helps to alleviate both of those. And a good sort of side effect of the hubs, particularly for patients who came to see us in the hospice venues, was the introduction to the hospice. As we talked about yesterday, a lot of people are still have a very dark vision of the hospice as this kind of one-way street, and you know, the patients who have attended the hubs in the hospices have been very surprised to see how light and airy they are, and how much laughter there is, and it's very much put their mind at rest about the fact that if they ever need to come to us, it's actually not that scary a place. So that's quite nice. Signposting and referral is another thing we do. And I've left for last, but it's definitely not the last really in our thoughts, is carer support. So we do see carers in their own rights. We will take referrals for carers in their own rights as long as the patient meets our criteria. And I'm talking about family carers, so not paid carers, but you know, your husband or wife or child or parent caring for somebody with a palliative or terminal illness. So that's the kind of work that we do in words. If I can take a minute or two, I'm not sure how much I'm doing on time, but just to give you a couple of examples of the kind of work that I've done, for example, with a couple of hub patients. For me, it's very much about quality of life and about helping the person to concentrate on what's meaningful to them. And I remember one lady that I had at one point came to the hub. I'd seen her a couple of times, and she came to see me one day very deflated, hoping to go on a cruise with her husband, which would have been the last, but was about to cancel it because she had continence issues and was scared of having an accident while she was on the cruise. And we sat down for 20 minutes, which really is not a huge amount of time, problem solved around the issue. She put those things in place that we discussed around renting some equipment and having some pads and doing a recce to see where the disabled loos were, to choose restaurants accordingly. And she went on that cruise, which did end up being her final cruise with her husband. But that was 20 minutes of a conversation to achieve something really meaningful for that person. And you know, Joe earlier on talked about this document around One Chance to Get It Right. And I know that document is around the last days and hours of life, but it is always in the back of my mind that actually this might be the last chance they have to do a particular thing or attempt a particular goal. So, you know, we might be 6 months or a year away from end of life, but actually there might still be things where it's their last chance to have a go at it. So nothing is off the table as far as I'm concerned. You know, we might not be able to achieve it, but we can certainly discuss it and have a go. So that's kind of what we're looking at the hubs. And then finally, a little bit on our website, we've got a section on our website around self-help resources, which kind of came up quite a bit around COVID and putting some resources there for patients and people, the general public, anybody. So there's advice around lymphedema, breathlessness, general well-being with information from the College of Occupational Therapists, and then some mindfulness and relaxation audio tracks that people can use. And we're rejigging the website at the minute, so watch this space. It's going to expand and be a bit more organized around categories and be hopefully easier to navigate with a lot of useful links and resources in there. And that's me done. Any questions?
Wow. There's an awful lot there. What an amazing service. Thanks, Gwendoline. I mean, there's lots of comments. One very about how we're going to work to get all of this into a newsletter, a directory of what is available, and just how helpful these last 2 days have been. I suppose one of the things, I'm just conscious of time, but one of the things I just wanted to say is, your kind of service, do you see that people come to you and it's a lot of confusion about the amount of professionals and the roles that they play, and then how you help to disseminate that for them and make that part of the holistic journey? And also, just secondly, I guess when we set up the loss and grief cafes, that kind of sense of loss, even if people come, you know, in terms of themselves, much more broadly, as you described, and how important you think this community outreach is in terms of that.
Yeah. Your first question is interesting, because rather than seeing confusion around the amount of professionals and services around, I am more seeing people who actually don't really know what's around.
Okay.
So it's, I'm getting, that's more the typical picture is more along those lines. We're getting quite a lot of referral from Wendy Ainsley, actually, and I think maybe it's because Wendy certainly does those referrals fairly quickly, so maybe those people are quite the early stages of that particular element, but certainly I'm having a lot of conversations explaining a lot further down the line, and giving a lot of information of what's around. I have a lady recently who was absolutely petrified of staying at home to die because she had no idea of what might be available. So it's more the other way around, interestingly.
It's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Siobhan has just.
What was your second question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just in
the
terms
loss, around
yeah.
loss. Yes, you're absolutely right, and that's very much a theme in the work around people's loss of themselves. For patients is their loss of identity. They're losing roles, so they're not able to work anymore. They might not be able to act as a husband or act as a wife anymore because they've got to be cared for. They can't drive. That's a big loss when people lose their ability to drive. So those losses are there already. Those patients are already bereaved of activities, of future plans, and it's the same for their carers. So the loss is there well before the person dies, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. So Siobhan has said, well done, Gwendoline, great presentation. And then Wendy has said, thank you for your support in the neighbourhood hubs. Feedback from patients has been so positive and patients have really benefited from this service. And Graeme, hope I've pronounced that right, says such a wonderful service, well done to all involved. So thank you so much, Gwendoline, for all you do, and breathing through the technical difficulties, and also for your time this afternoon. Thank you ever so much. We really appreciate it. So now we are a little bit over, but I hope you found that it's been valuable in terms of what we've gone over on and the fantastic discussion that's also happening in the chat. Now we're going to hand over to Felicity Warner, who's the Soul Midwives founder.
Okay. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. And I'm really at the other end of the scale entirely. With the service that we offer as Soul Midwives. I do have some slides and I'm not sure if you can see them. I'm just going to see if I can. No, I might not be able to do this. I'm used to working with Zoom.
I'll do it for you, Felicity. Okay?
Would you be able to? That's great.
When you want them moved on, just 1 second, bear with me. Just do carry on.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Just shout when you've got them up and I'll... Okay. Oh, are they? Is the first one showing? Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks so much. That's lovely. So I'll just introduce myself, really. I'm the founder of an organisation called Soul Midwives. This work grew from work that I was doing many years ago as a hospice volunteer, sitting especially with people who had no visitors or family to sit with them, seeing what was really happening at end of life, understanding how it was to die and the process of dying and all manner of things around that. So this work has taken a long time to develop, and it was me just at the beginning sitting there, as I say, watching, listening and really joining some dots up, because at that time all the focus really was on clinical care of the dying, and I was seeing that small acts of kindness, small acts of tenderness and really being with that person one-to-one had huge potential in helping people to feel calm and reassured and to feel re-empowered again. This was right at the beginning. I then began using some very simple holistic techniques with people at the end of life. I then started writing books and running workshops, and Soul Midwives has grown from that. We now have about 1,000 practitioners in the UK, and we have our regions, and at the moment I'm the mother of the organisation, but I also look after Cornwall. I'm based in Dorset, but I am Cornish, and I spend a lot of time in Cornwall, or usually, but COVID has meant that's very difficult. You may or may not have come into contact with Soul Midwives, so let's just give you a bit of an idea about what we do. Anyone can become a soul midwife. Really, we are holistic and spiritual companions to anyone at the end of life. And we are there to really, as I say, offer that one-to-one connection. We are there, we have consistency, we have knowledge about the system. We're able to help with advocacy in the early stages, very personal one-to-one support, therapeutic support. If we talk about the holistic side and unpick that, that really refers to two things. One is we are able to offer very simple holistic techniques to calm and soothe and reassure. The other thing is, looking at the holistic side, is we look at the whole person, not just the disease and how that's affecting them. So it's as I say, very, very much person-led, very individual, and with the hope of helping them to achieve the end of life that they would hope for. The spiritual aspect of that is non-denominational. It is very much to do with just being with people at the deepest part of themselves, and being able to talk about anything that's worrying, anything that needs addressing, and we can signpost if there is a need for more information or more services. So it's holistic and spiritual support. I'm just having a look here. Yes, our training, some soul midwives are volunteers. We have many soul midwives who are volunteers at hospices, in hospitals, in care homes. Some, and this is a growing movement, are independent practitioners in their community. So they are actually working with families at home in the community as independent practitioners. They our training is an intensive 4-day course, which is followed by a 6-month probationary period where they're out in the field but supervised and mentored, and then they have to produce 6 case studies to be submitted and assessed before they are able to go out and be fully fledged. They're all insured and have DBS checks. Just as a note, many soul midwives are also health professionals and are wearing 2 hats. So we do have quite a number of doctors, nurses, psychotherapists, counsellors, social workers, complementary therapists, and care staff who are actually soul midwives as well, and other people from all walks of life, men and women. Ages range from about 24 up to about 84. Our youngest soul midwife at the moment is an oncology nurse, and our oldest one is a lady who was a birthing midwife. She's 84, and she has become a soul midwife to support members of her church. So this just gives you an idea of the spread of the sort of people that come and become soul midwives. Could we have slide number 3, please? Which is our timeline. Could we have that one showing? Oh, that
one is up, Felicity. I can see it.
Oh, you can see it. Okay, yeah. Thanks. Okay, our timeline, just to give you an idea again, we we often work, and we like to work with people from point of diagnosis when they're still feeling quite well, but they know that they have a life-limiting condition. If we can begin our work with them at this early stage, we can build trust, we can get to know them really well, they can get to know us really well, and we can really become this sort of best friend at the bedside. That's a way of looking at the work we do. One of the big things we'll do at this early stage is to help them create an end-of-life plan of sorts, and we're looking at a really personal end-of-life plan in our context, discussing what end of life might look like, and also we will be have an advocacy role at this time, really giving information about the sorts of things that are possible if they're not getting this information from anywhere else. And as Gwendoline was saying, a lot of people don't really realise what is out there, what is available. So that's really quite a big role for us at the beginning, if we can work with someone early on, just giving them information, letting them know what the possibilities actually are, and then help to facilitate that. We do work with clinical care teams, so we are part of that team, often helping to advise and there when decisions are made, and that's increasingly becoming something that is quite common, that we are involved at that level. We will then really produce a sort of flexible map for the future, but flexible being the operative word, because as people go through their treatments, etc., they may well change their mind about the sorts of things that's really important to them. But the whole point about this early stage is to empower them, to make them, to help them by supporting them on a deep level to really live every life to its fullest again. We'll also, and this stage is characterized usually by about 6 sessions, we will also introduce them to some complementary therapies. We will do some relaxation work with them. We will maybe do some mindfulness, maybe work with music, and all this will be one-to-one. And we will also do some memory work with them, so they may work on small projects, producing recipe books, paintings, poetry, family jokes and anecdotes we may help them put together. And of course, as you will know, this is a really useful therapeutic dynamic while they're doing this and they're with us. Uncomfortable conversations may come up to the surface for them, and they may be able to chat about concerns and worries. At the end of our timeline, we will be able to be there during the active dying stage if we're requested, and we will be able to vigil in the final days and hours if they don't have families who are able to do that, or if they do have families who need support in doing that. Again, that's something that we can do and decide nearer the time. We are requested by lots of families to do this vigiling work if families live a long way away and perhaps can't be there themselves, or if there's a fractured family and it's difficult for them to actually be at the bedside giving support. That the idea is that no one should die alone unless that's their choice. Obviously, a lot of our work takes place in hospitals as well, so that we would be at the hospital bedside if that's able to do, and of course in people's homes as well. So could we have slide number 4, please? End of life wishes. Okay. End of life wishes, this is just a flavour of some of the questions that we might be discussing with them. Again, if they're able to and comfortable about discussing the sort of end of life wish. For instance, where would they like to die? Who would they like with them? Who would they not like with them? Do they have any religious or spiritual rituals or observations that would be important? Would they like any gentle holistic treatments to continue as death approaches? And things like, how would I like to be remembered? I mean, that's just a very short list showing the sort of thing that we might talk about in that pre-active stage. the ethos of this work really is that at end of life, small things can become very important, and we're really there to do small things that make a huge difference to people at the end of life. So our aim is that they feel safe, they feel loved and not frightened, they feel heard, they feel understood, and we are there to offer this as a one-to-one relationship, and they can call us and we will be there to help them through any of these phases. The spiritual support, which again is slide 6. As I said, we're non-denominational. And the use of our word spiritual is wide and inclusive. So we're working with the beliefs of the person we're caring for, belief or none. Obviously, many people don't have any, and we are just there to listen to the deep questions. We also offer simple celebrancy at the bedside, such as small blessings or prayers if we're asked to perform this. And many soul midwives are already existing members of chaplaincy teams in hospices and hospitals and also care homes. So this is another part of our work. Slide 7 is, as I mentioned just earlier, living life to the full. This is really what we are really hoping that our friends, as we call them, they're not clients, they're not patients, but we hope with our support and encouragement, they will really feel empowered to live life to the full. And we will help them to do that by really giving them this close one-to-one support and sharing tools with them to help make that journey a better one. So we do a lot of mindfulness and relaxation. We work with essential oils, soothing touch, breathing exercises to help with anxiety, music, soft lights, soft blankets. These are all part of our toolkit, and holding hands and listening very deeply to everything that is being said and also not being said. Slide number 8, what sort of people become soul midwives? I think actually really it is a lot about life experience. This role is non-clinical, it's about companionship, it's about really listening and really being there. So anybody with a warm heart and commitment and a genuine desire to help is welcomed, but the training is rigorous, and we do have a filtering system to check that the people who are coming to us for training are really suitable for the work. And as I said earlier, they are mentored and supervised, our soul midwives, and are insured and have DBS checks. Our service in Cornwall, as I mentioned, we have a lot of soul midwives in the UK now. We have a small but busy and committed team in Cornwall, right down from a soul midwife down just near Land's End, right up to the border with Devon. And we have a good spread in between. I looked at our notes, and we have between 35 and 40 requests from Cornwall, or we did in the last year, slightly less the year before. People self-refer, families come to us asking. Often this is a word of mouth referral, and we do also in many other parts of the country have referrals from GPs. Really, if people have heard of us, we may get the phone call to come and help them. And we are able to find a soul midwife to help most people within 24 hours of a phone call. We also in the county run community events, death cafes. We speak at lectures, and we give talks within the communities to spread the word and to encourage people to have conversations around death and dying. So I've given a very quick run through there. I know we're running slightly late. And so I think that's probably about it. I should say that some soul midwives volunteer. Some do make a small charge for their services, and there is a sliding scale, and I don't think there is any soul midwife anywhere who would turn anyone away if financial difficulties were a problem. So that's what we do. And the other thing to mention is that in Dorset, within the NHS, soul midwifery is now being offered to all patients at end of life within the county's community hospitals. So we do work within the mainstream NHS as well, and it looks as if this will be set to expand, hopefully, within this next year. But COVID, of course, like everything else, has brought its challenges. So I'm conscious of the time, and that is probably my bit for now, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Wow, thank you, Felicity. What an amazing service that is. So Millie has just put in a sort of Reiki for the soul. This is brilliant work, Felicity. A couple of people, so Christina has just said, I've taken this training with Felicity, and as a district nurse, I really feel this is a wonderful support to our existing role. I guess too, just listening to another comment from Lana. Felicity, thank you for sharing the importance of this holistic care within the end of life pathway. And Christina's also said, thank you very much, Felicity, a really lovely presentation. So absolutely fantastic to hear about, you know, what you do and the reach and where that is now in Cornwall and how the service is developing. And we really, there's no questions in the chat box, but people might have things that they want to contact you about afterwards. And I was just thinking too, just listening, just that education piece of the awareness that service is there at an incredibly difficult time. So how we can help to support you in terms of getting out your service across all the wider networks. So it'd be lovely to make contact with you after the conference. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's just a delight to be able to be a part of this. And if anybody would like to be in touch at all, just send me an email. I think, well, the email is office@soulmidwives.co.uk. And delighted to answer any questions at all. But thank you so much.
No, thank you. So thank you, everybody. And it's amazing to see how many of you have actually stayed with us for the whole afternoon. So we hope you have enjoyed day 2. We're really looking forward to day 3 and hopefully see you all tomorrow afternoon. So thank you ever so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.